In this session of international business, the topic discussed will be main drivers of globalization and manifestations of globalization. There are several factors which contribute to the growth of globalization. Technology is one of the important driving force. Advanced e-commerce system has made the emergence of companies such as Amazon, eBay, Paytm, and so many possible and successful. Many US and UK companies have outsourced many of their business activities to countries such as China, India, Mexico, Turkey, Bangladesh, and many more. This technological revolution enables traders from remote parts of the world to sell their products or services to customers around the world on virtual platforms. In a nutshell, there are a number of driving forces behind globalization. Many of companies are now multinational corporations because of technological change, reducing the cost of transmitting and communicating information, known as the depth of distance. This is an enormous factor behind trade in knowledge products using internet technology. Let's discuss the next driving force, which is economies of scale. Many economists believe that there has been an increase in the minimum efficient scale associated with particular industries. If the MES is rising, a domestic market may be regarded as too small to satisfy the selling needs of these industries. Overseas sales becomes essential. Deregulation of financial markets. This has included the removal of capital controls in many countries, which facilitates direct foreign investments. Differences in tax system. The desire of multinational corporations to benefit from lower labor costs and other favorable factor endowments abroad and develop and exploit fresh comparative advantages in production has encouraged many countries to adjust their tax systems to attract foreign direct investment. Next driving force is less protectionism. All forms of non tariff protection, such as import licensing and foreign exchange controls, have gradually been dismantled. Borders have opened and average tariff levels have fallen. That said, in the last few years, there has been a rise in protectionism as countries have struggled to achieve growth after the global financial crisis. Globalization no longer necessarily requires a business to own or have a physical presence. In terms of either owning production plants or land in other countries or even exports and imports. For instance, economic activity can be shifted abroad using licensing and franchising, which only needs information and finance to cross border. Let's move on to understand the manifestations of globalization. These manifestations can be classified into three areas: economic manifestations, political manifestation, social and cultural manifestations. Let's begin to understand economic manifestations of globalization. It is increasingly over the past 2 centuries. Economic activity has become more globally oriented and integrated. Few of the economists argue that it is no longer meaningful to think in terms of national economies. International trade has become central to most local and domestic economies around the world. International economic institutions such as WTO, World Trade Organization, IMF, International Monetary Fund facilitate this increasingly barrier free flow of goods, services, and money, that is, capital, internationally. Regionally, too, organizations like NAFTA, North America Free Trade Association, and EU, European Union, and ASEAN, Association of Southeast Asian Nations, work towards economic integration within their respective geographical regions. The next manifestation is relating to political manifestation of globalization. Globalization has impact in the political arena, but there is not a consensus among social scientists about the nature and degree of its impact on both national and international politics. Some political scientists argue that globalization is weakening nation states and that global institutions gradually will take over the functions and power of nation states. Other social scientists believe that while increased global interconnectivity will result in dramatic changes in world politics, particularly in international relations. That is, the way states relate to each other. The nation state will remain at the center of international political activity. To some experts, the demise of the Soviet Union and the Eastern Bloc a decade ago promised a new era of world peace and increased openness. The processes of globalization accelerated as goods, ideas, and people flowed more freely across borders in the post Cold War political environment. Let's continue with understanding political manifestations of globalization. In place of policies of containment, the international community fostered policies of openness of trade and based on the principles of democracy and rights. With such increased openness, multilateral organizations, and in particular the United Nations, have changed their focus from maintaining the balance of power between East and West to a more global approach of peacekeeping, peace building or development, environmental protection, protection of human rights, and the maintenance of rule of law internationally. The creation of legal institutions such as international criminal tribunals that have sprung up in the past decade, as well as the proliferation of major international conferences aiming to address global problems through international cooperation, have been referred to as proof of political globalization. Still, since all of these institutions rely on the participation of nation states and respect the fundamental principle of national sovereignty. The extent to which these institutions exhibit true political globalization continues to be debated. So, we have discussed these manifestations of globalization. Let's move on to understand social and cultural manifestation of globalization, which can be discussed under the concept of informational services. The past 2 decades have seen an internationalization of information services involving the exponential expansion of computer based communication through the internet and electronic mail. News services. In recent years, there has been a significant shift in the transmission and reporting of world news with the rise of a small number of global news services. Popular culture. The contemporary revolution in communication technology has had a dramatic impact in the arena of popular culture. Information technology enables a wide diversity of locally based popular culture to develop and reach to a larger audience. In this session, we have completed the concept relating to understanding the drivers of globalization and various manifestations of globalization.